Don't worry about consequence. Don't worry about time. Say what's in your soul. Tell me your everything. I want to know. I won't turn my back on you, won't turn my back on you. I'll listen carefully, I'll listen carefully. I will be, and I will be, and stand by me now. You'll be my hero. Don't worry about how I'll let it all go. Don't hang on to anything. Don't do it for show. I won't turn my back on you, won't turn my back on you. I'll make you proud of me, you'll be so proud of me. What's on your mind? Don't worry about consequence. Don't worry about time.
Hello everyone, this is Lori Smith and I'm glad to be here and just glad to be doing a show here on Spreaker. And this is called The Healing Journey. This is dealing with my own healing journey, working through child abuse. And I do talk a lot about my own story, as everybody knows if you've caught my shows here. And tonight I thought I'd do a show just talking about the healing journey. You know, it's for survivors of abuse. It's a process, you know, and it takes time. That song there was Thursday Song by Marina V. And I just thought that was so fitting because what I've been dealing with lately, as you know, in my own healing journey, in my own walk in this, you know, it's most days I do really well, and then other days not so well. You'll have a memory kind of come up to the surface, and maybe even something new that I didn't really think of before, or didn't really come to me before so strongly, and then I've got to deal with it. And so I thought I'd just talk tonight about that and sort of, you know, how it's worked for me. You know, healing journeys are really our own personal things, because we can't, like, everybody's in a different place in their healing journey, you know, and people heal at different rates, and people need different things, you know. So what works for me may not work for somebody else. What works for somebody else may not work for me. And so, this is, I'm not here to tell people how to get on it, how to do the healing journey. Really, I just want it to be an encouragement for survivors out there. If you're on a healing journey and you're having a hard time, to look for the information. I got online today and I was looking around just because of some stuff that I'm working on. I've got a new website. It's called Bored in Hell. It's probably triggered me a little bit in my healing journey. And because I'm going back and I'm doing videos instead of doing audio. I'm actually doing video and discussing and sort of expounding upon my book, A Life of Death and Redemption. And, going through different stages in my life, starting from the womb to like 4 years old, and then I'm going to continue 5 to 6, and then 7 to 8, then 8 to 9, sort of thing, and just work my way up and just talk a little bit about the issues that were going on at the time, and give people a little bit more background information regarding my story for those who are interested. And thanks everybody for tuning in to my shows. By the way, I have a lot of people who listen to my work. I don't know who you all are, and I really appreciate it, you taking the time to do that, because I'm just a regular person out here. I'm just a nobody, really. I'm just a voice out here in the middle of this big world here, and you're taking the time to listen to my stuff, and I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. I've had a lot of support over the years since 2009, really, when I started doing sort of public disclosure of my information, right? And I've had a lot of people tune into my stuff. I've had, on Blog Talk Radio, I've had 53,000 listens to my shows, and I did 1,100 shows there. And I've had 53,000 people listen to my shows, or 53,000 listens, so I don't know how many people that would equate to. But that's a lot. And I mean, over the years, so many people have listened to my stuff, and I really appreciate it. And my website, you can find it at, it's on Weebly. It's author Lori Ann Smith. So just type it out, author Lori Ann Smith. And --Tornerup, TORNERUP.weebly.com. And I'll include it in the link. I'll include the link here in this show page. But it's called Bored in Hell. And I'm just kind of showcasing my audio there. All my audio from Blog Talk Radio, and now I'm doing some new videos and stuff. So it's kind of triggered me a little bit doing that work, and just talking and looking at the issues, and so these things can be very difficult for survivors, and I just wanted to sort of reach out to survivors, and in doing this I was looking at because I had done a bunch of shows actually looking at Irving Studios. That's the Child Abuse Survivor Monument up here, the website in Canada. They're back east. I think they're in Toronto, or they're in Ontario somewhere up in Canada. But it's a great website, and I was just looking at self-care and the different things that they have on their website. And I had already been looking at that for years, especially looking at with my Blog Talk Radio shows called One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. And I did like hundreds and hundreds of those shows. And looking at resource material. And really, it was my healing journey, and I was actually doing the work while I was broadcasting, and then I'd do the work, later on at some point or during the week or whatever. I was broadcasting like every day, 2 shows here, sometimes 3, and on Blog Talk Radio. And so I had looked up a whole lot of information. I know where to find it, and it's there is good information out there, and I had sort of been forgot that these things are very important to do. For self-care, for survivors of abuse, and some of these things may work for some people, like I said, may not work for others, but there's good information out there to get a hold of if you search it out or contact people that may know, and do these things. But we have to do them. We can find the information, that's great, and we can look at it for a couple seconds and say, okay, I'll do that later, and then we can put it off and not do it, and then a couple months will roll by, and then we're not feeling any better maybe, and things just aren't progressing in the healing journey. We may be kind of stuck. So I'm going to go back and do some of that self-care stuff. And one thing I was talking about, I don't know when I was talking about it, was not too long ago on a Spreaker show, this particular program that really helped me out a lot. I don't know if it would help everybody out. When I first started this program, it was like a healing therapy type program. I actually didn't really understand it, first of all, and didn't really think about the inner child. And I was working on John Bradshaw's stuff and looking at, healing the inner child and the wounded inner child. And to me, it just seems so weird to think that I had these inner children or an inner child inside that was that was there, sort of stuck in the pain, stuck in the moment of the trauma, right? And if you do look around, there's some great information out there about the inner child. And going through John, I got his books, John Bradshaw's books, and I started looking into it. And I realized that I did have a wounded inner child, and I actually had many, many wounded inner children, and all from the different traumatic events in my life, all dealing with all different ages, all the way from, an infant all the way up, and even the me who was sexually abused was there, and the one who is angry, just wanting to self-injure and wanting to just has so much rage in her. That's that inner child, right? And I started to recognize them after I did a lot of work. But this one particular lady, Beverly Searle, Searle, out of Australia, has a program, and it used to be called Forget Talking Therapy. I think it still might be called Forget Talking Therapy, but the name of the website's called Be Happy, and she's in Australia. This program actually worked really well for me. I don't know if it would work, like I said, for anybody else, but it certainly helped me out. And it works with the limbic system of the brain, which is because when a person's suffers trauma, it doesn't have to be child abuse. It could be any kind of trauma, from a car wreck or a sickness or an illness or natural disaster. You just name it. I mean, or even a war vet. Somebody who's been in the military. Somebody who's survived trauma can end up with these issues, and this program actually works for that, and it just works for all kinds of things, because that sort of thing is stored up in the limbic system. It doesn't have words, so this is all dealing with pictures. That's why it's called Forget Talking Therapy. So it's a visualization program, and when I first started doing it, I was kind of like, well, I wasn't so much leery, but I was thinking, I don't know if this is going to work for me, because I don't know, talking really was helping me out. And I thought talking therapy was helping me out, I figured, and it was doing a good job, so I didn't really think that I needed that. But a friend of mine was working with me a little bit, Kate Mitchell out of Australia as well, who also helped create that program or helped design it. And these two ladies, between the two of them, worked with me on this program, and it really made a huge difference. And I've been able to really walk forward in my healing journey, and making amazing strides because of it. And whenever I have something come up, like recently I just had a memory resurface that I hadn't thought about for a long, long time, that was disturbing. It was just disturbing, and I just sit there and I think, it just takes me back to the child sexual abuse that I suffered, and it just takes me back to the fact that I will never see justice, and I'm barren, and have these memories, these horrible, horrific memories from being abused sexually, right? Incest. And it's this program allows me then to go and actually reach into my inner self and meet with that little me, the 8-year-old me who was sexually abused, and actually make sure that she's all right, and ask her, and talk to her and find out what's going on with her and what she's feeling, and then reassure her that everything's okay, that she's in a safe place, that it wasn't her fault, and there's nothing that can hurt her now, and this type of thing. It was very, very helpful for me to do that, and I have many inner children, many, and I had to kind of do that with all of them in the different respects. But it did work for me. I don't know if it would work for everybody else, like I said, but it was very, very helpful. And so that's one thing that really helped me out a lot, and I will be going back in to do some work, just because of what I've sort of recently sort of been thinking about, because of this memory that sort of surfaced, right? And part of me as a survivor, especially, the physical abuse and the psychological abuse, everybody knew that our family was crazy. My parents were brought up on abuse charges. We had documentation. When I was in a car accident when I was 18, and they had to do a full body scan because I was underneath the engine. I was halfway under the engine, and they had to pull me out with the jaws of life and everything. And they thought that it was a lot more damage than there really was, and thank God there wasn't as much damage as they thought. But my ankle was completely off my body, and it had to be put back on and rebuilt my foot, and my leg was kind of half sheared off because of the underneath the metal, right? And so they were thinking there was a lot more broken bones and things like that. My face was smashed in, and my teeth were all pushed back. Everything was really smashed, and my chest was smashed. Then my ribs were broken and shattered. And they went in and they did X-rays, especially of my neck and my head and stuff like that. They wanted to make sure everything was okay. And as the guy was doing the X-rays, he was like, whoa, whoa, what do we have here? And I remember this, and I was sitting there, and I was like, just listening to him, and I was like, he's concentrating on being very still, because I had to be very still for this thing, for this test, right? And he's like, what do we have going on? He says, you were either really, really clumsy as a child, or you suffered some serious physical abuse. And I said, well, it was a little both, actually. So, because I didn't want to sit there and just say, yeah, I was abused as a child. It was quite embarrassing, actually. And they did a full body scan, and he was very angry, very, very angry. I mean, the physical abuse, I mean, it is what it is, It's like, I mean, people knew what was going on in our home. But the child sexual abuse, that happened in the dark. That happened in a room where there was nobody around. And I sometimes wish that it was just pretend that it never happened, And sometimes I think that's just my way of dealing with it, that I wish it would just go away, And, maybe the gynecologists were wrong, right? I had a gynecologist, my first checkup. Actually, I put down that I was a virgin on the clipboard because, I had never had sexual relations with anybody. And because in my mind I hadn't, And so I wasn't sitting there, I mean, I was like 21 years old, And I had my first checkup at the age of 21 and wanted to get on the pill. And the gynecologist was like, so you're saying you're a virgin? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, well, you can say that if you want to, but, we know you've suffered some child sexual abuse because these scars are really old. And there's a lot of damage there. And you may or may not be able to have children. And you can press charges if you want to. Because I was 21, see. So they couldn't force me to press charges. They said, we're going to report it as we see it. It's up to you to press charges. And I said, well, my abuser is dead. My brother killed himself the year before. And would there have been anything done? Probably not, because I would have had no support from my parents, no support from anyone. And I probably wouldn't have bothered to press charges because I had been abused my whole life by my parents, by my brother, and really probably I was just so used to it. I was just so used to being abused. At that point I was still doing drugs and was still somewhat using drugs and was not really looking after myself all that well, and I probably wouldn't have done anything about it anyway. And so years later, I'm sitting around at the age of 50 now, with no children, no heritage, right? And it was stolen from me. It was stolen from me. It wasn't a stranger who did that. And a lot of people think child sexual abuse, most of it happens with stranger danger, but it's not. It's usually a family member or somebody that the child knows. It's somebody who has access to that child. See, it has to be somebody who has access to the child, right? And this is really horrific, It's like as an adult, I do really well on my healing journey. I can work and I can maintain. I've been really blessed to be able to maintain and to be able to be stable. I've only had like I talk about it in several of my episodes, actually in almost all of them, that I've had periods in my life where I wasn't so stable. But I wasn't necessarily not going to go kill myself, but I definitely had suicide ideation, and I wouldn't lie about that. I just needed help, I just couldn't deal with the pain anymore, And my brother killed himself, my parents were suicidal, so I knew that I didn't want to kill myself. I knew that was the wrong way to go. But in the meantime, I couldn't figure out how to keep going, So when I started my healing journey back in 2007, so it's been 9 years now, almost 10 years. I made it. I just made a deal. I mean, even though God doesn't make deals, I just made a deal with God, and I said, I will never, ever, ever, ever think about that again. I will never consider ending my life ever again. I'm going to live, and it's become my fight. That's my thing. I'm like, no, I'm going to live, and I'm going to get help when I need it. I'm going to reach out. I'm going to get help. I'm going to get, I'm going to get my needs met for the first time, Wow, as an adult at the age of 42, deciding that I am a person. I did not deserve to be abused. I did not deserve to be mistreated that way. I did not deserve to be sexually abused, And it's like I have rights, and I have the right to life, and I have the right to a good life. I have the right to get help, and I have the right to succeed at this life. And I mean, I'd always been a kind of a goer and a doer. I mean, I've always kind of had goals set. I wanted to do certain things, and I've done some really cool stuff actually. Including going to school in several different schools. And I mean, for somebody who comes from the gutter, and being abused and battered and doing tons of drugs before the age of like 15. I mean, I graduated high school, but I barely got through. But it's like, I mean, I've really, I'm just so thankful that I can sit here and say that, that I'm able to maintain. But that's why I try to be, a voice for other people out here to say that, what, I'm not anybody that's just special, it's just a matter of you have to do it. You have to say, no, I'm going to do this, And it's, two of my brothers did not do that. And they killed themselves, right? One of my brothers died of a drug overdose in a shelter here in Calgary, where I live. And, it was really suicide because he had been really overdosing for years. He didn't care how many drugs he would do. He would just do an enormous amount of drugs, and he didn't care if he woke up, right? It was basically a type of suicide. And he had a lot of brain damage because of that. And he was, he was a pretty good guy. And my other brother, years before, when I was 20, killed himself. He hung himself. He was a cocaine addict, and he never took care of himself. He was abused. My dad abused him, and I'm not sure, but I think there was sexual abuse going on in my home that I didn't know about. I know that my dad was sexually abusing my mother. People want to say, well, what's that? Well, that's marital rape. My mother was not, she was very sick, and she was not supposed to be having children, and my dad would not let her get on the pill. And so he kept raping her, and he would just rape her all the time, unless somebody was home to stop him, or could stop him, right? And so, my brothers grew up seeing this, and they were very sort of twisted, and I'm not sure, I don't know, but it just seems to me that possibly my brother was sexually abused too. I don't know. But all I know is that my brother, who's 12, 13 years older than me, then sexually abused me at the age of 8. And it's like, this is a life sentence for me, right? I mean, he's gone, he's dead. And I mean, as a Christian, I mean, I'm a Christian, and so I believe in my heart that I really have to forgive, because God's the judge, and God is a just judge, And I sit there and I think, man, I mean, is my brother in hell? I don't know. It doesn't even matter to me because of what he did, Like, why do people do these things? How could people do this? This was rape. This was not a game. This wasn't a game he set up for me. This was, I was tied up, and I was gagged, and I was bound, and I was raped. And this is my life sentence, And so it's been an incredibly hard journey to get through this, because I have to sit on one hand, I sit here and I say, how insane is that, for somebody to do that to a little girl like that, or to a little boy. It doesn't matter. This is incredibly wrong, and that little me from 8 years old, 8 probably turning 9 because it went on for a year, sits there and, she can't figure it out. She just can't understand it. She doesn't understand why her mother wasn't there to protect her. Why her mom didn't do anything. And I still have I'm not going to go into any details here. It's a little too graphic. But I mean, I've got some memories that no child should have. Ever. Right? And I have to put those in place, and I have to learn how to deal with those. And that's, it's hard. It is. Because every time this surfaces, I have to then I have to go through and do the work, and this is something we all have to do, as survivors of abuse, right? We have to do the work. That's what I've been doing for like almost 10 years now. doing the work, right? But I do put it off sometimes. I think I put it off a little too long, and then I have to go back and redo it, relook at it. And but there is some good stuff out there for people. I found just some basic things that I forgot to do, which was just simply writing to my inner child, telling her the things that I think that she needs to hear from me, that I'm sorry that happened to her. Because nobody else is saying they're sorry. My mother's not saying she's sorry. She never did. My mother used to beat the crap out of me, but she never said she was sorry. And she burned me. She was horrible, man. She threw me out of the house, spit in my face. She was just a vicious woman. And my brother never said he was sorry. He actually told me he loved what he did to me, and then he killed himself. So I have to be that nurturer for her. There's nobody else that can do it. And so this inner child stuff, it really worked for me. It really helped me out a lot, because there's some interesting stuff on that Irving, like I was saying, Irving Studios, or it's actually called the Child Abuse Survivor Monument. And if you just type in your browser Child Abuse Survivor Monument, it should come up, or Irving Studios. That's what it'll be, because it's Dr. Irving, and he's a psychotherapist, he's a sculptor, and he's a survivor of abuse himself. And so he's got some great information there under the self-care tab, right? And there's things that we can do, to help ourselves out. And so I just want it to be sort of encouragement for survivors out here, to, if you're having a hard time and you're struggling, you reach out and get some help. I have people that I'm in contact with all the time, periodically throughout the week, who, if I'm having trouble, or, if I'm having issues with certain things, I'll just get a hold of them. And because they know my situation, they help to work with me on the therapy stuff. That they'll help me get through it. You need to find somebody who you can trust, right? And then you need to reach out and get some help. And do not allow yourself to be destroyed by this, and don't allow yourself to just suffer alone in silence by yourself, And you've got to be your best advocate for yourself. And I encourage you to go over, if you're interested in listening to my stuff on a lot of the healing stuff, which is some great information, because it's not just me talking about my story. There's a lot of great information on these web shows that I did from different websites. It's not my material, it's stuff that I was reading, but it's really good information. I give the links, I tell people where to find it, and there's a Survivor to Thriver workbook, ASCA, and there's all kinds of good stuff. So if you need help, you need information, get a hold of me. And you can check out my website, Born in Hell, and author Lori Ann Smith tornerup.weebly.com. And take care, everybody. God bless you all. I'm going to play a song called Got to Be Free, Blind Divine. And then I'll be back. I hope to be back soon. And, like I'm saying, if you're struggling, make sure you reach out and get some help. And do not allow yourself to be destroyed by this. You get some help. And you keep going. I'm counting on it. I'm counting on you. And you stay alive, and you have a good life, because you deserve it. I deserve it. And we have to make sure this happens for ourselves, right? So take care. God bless you all. Talk to you soon.